And we are live, it says. So let's see if YouTube thinks the same thing. Facebook says the same thing. It very much looks like it, yes. So that is good news. And yep, we're also live on Facebook now. So do say hi to your Facebook friends.
Hey everyone, it's good
Hello,
to be
Facebook
here.
Friends.
Hello Facebook friends, hello YouTube friends, hello everybody.
Yep, I see Jeroen already waving.
Good.
So,
well then, let's get the show on the road.
That's all right. Should we wait for a few more people to join because I see them slowly join?
Hi everyone.
Not everyone has the fast internet connection that we have in Wiege, Joost.
I'll do a short commercial break.
We should have created a product placement warning banner. All right. So, how are you today? Is anything special going on in the Netherlands?
We just entered lockdown again.
And what does lockdown mean exactly?
For us, that means the most horrible thing in all that kids will be home as of tomorrow until the 19th of January. Because all schools will be closed and they'll have online classes. I'm not looking forward to that. Anyway, I love my kids, but...
All right.
Well, I'm happy to say that today is my last day at work and I will have a child-free experience all over Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's time to get started now because I did not want to hear that. So, lovely people joining us on YouTube and Facebook. We are here today for the last webinar of 2020. Wow. Next one will obviously be next year. And today we bring you Jono Alderson, who is the digital strategist, marketing technologist, and full stack developer at Yoast. And of course, there is the one and only, the famous Joost de Valk, founder and chief product officer at Yoast. Or we had him, right, there he is again. So,
hi.
That's the two of them. Have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you, Taco.
We will. I should actually switch to my screen, right? Or Taco is going to do that for me. Hi, everyone. We have a lot of news to cover, but we say that every month, and every month that, well, it turns out to be doable. We're going to talk about Google. And most of it will be about talking about Google when it works. But let's start with talking about Google when it didn't work. Because briefly there this week, it broke down.
In unprecedented news. So I think a large portion of the internet just stopped working yesterday. So it turns out that some gubbins somewhere in Google's user management and authentication system broke, which took with it Google Drive, Google Search, Gmail, YouTube, and anything where you essentially have to sign in to do parts of Google services. And the whole world came crashing to a halt for a few hours. It was a really profound reminder of just how deeply integrated Google is into all of the things that we do. My heating stopped working. My email stopped working. Everything just paused. It was, scary.
But it's kind of scary that your heating stopped working. I mean, that is yes. that to me is like, we've done something wrong in how we design these things. Anyway,
I can't ever say anything that annoys Google because it took me.
Honestly, these things happen and are going to happen for the foreseeable future, I think. As much as Google tries to prevent it, sometimes things break. It's what happens. On to slightly more real news in many ways. Google launched a major core algorithm update in December. I will probably have to switch my slide for that because I actually can. Look, there we are, Google News. Hey! So yeah, there's a lot of news around this. What can we say, Jono? What do we think about this major update?
I guess so. We touch on this quite frequently, and I guess there's two flavors to this. One is the same thing we always say, and the same thing Google always says, which is if you are doing the right kinds of things and you are building a quality experience and you have a good website with good content that targets the right users in the right way, etc., 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 then nothing about this should worry you. There is no scenario where a Google update should destroy your business accidentally overnight. Like, if you're doing the right kind of stuff, you might go up a bit, you might go down a bit in different places. Some of your competitors might do the same, but really this shouldn't mean that you have to change what you're doing or the way that you're doing if you're doing the right things.
No, they actually tell us that, right? Because they said they do provide guidance on what to do when you're hit by this. And the guidance basically says do the right thing.
Yeah, because obviously some people are hit. If some websites go up, some others go down. And that means that some businesses and websites wake up in the morning and find that they've lost a lot of traffic. And the first thing they say is, what's happened? What's changed? What did I do wrong? What can I do about this? And Google point to this documentation where it says, just have a better website, which I'm on the fence about. I think that is the right advice to give, and it's the right thing these people need to do. But in that moment where they're hurting, what they're looking for is tactical advice. And specifically, what do I need to fix and what do I need to change? And Google's not always great at answering those questions, right? They provide very generic best practice guidelines.
In part because they don't know.
And this is the challenge, because the thing that we generally agree and suspect that these core updates are is big iterations on their machine learning black box, quote unquote, AI systems, where there aren't engineers at Google specifically coding, if the logo is blue, make it rank better. These are black box systems talking to other black box systems, assessing the whole web, looking to reward quality. But yeah, for an individual website or an individual page, nobody has any idea why that particular one's gone up or down a bit. And the only advice you can give is make this better. It's hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, wait, that was the old one, because we do have a list of who won and who lost, right, in all of this.
Yeah, just before we get onto that, I think one of the other things which is really helpful to think about from this is something they don't say very often. You've got it in the slide there. Everybody says, why did my site drop? What did I change? What did I do wrong? How do I make my site rank better? But quite often, what might be happening is your competitors might have done better stuff than you, or might have messed something up and dropped down. It might not be that you improved at all. It might be that all of your competitors got worse or didn't improve. It's so hard to understand which bit of this ecosystem affected whose rankings in what ways. And the only thing you can do is say, how should I make my site better? Difficult. But yeah, so there were some interesting...
So it's good to mention that this is basically a zero-sum game. If you lose, someone else wins. If you win, someone else loses.
Yeah.
And that means you have to look at all of these factors all the time. Yeah. But then we had a who won and who's lost, and it was quite interesting to see the big winners there, or mostly the big losers, actually.
Yeah, so there's an SEO company, an agency in America called Path Interactive, where a person called Lily Ray, who we're big fans of, did a bunch of research based on Systrix data, which is a ranking platform. And they did a big analysis of the top winning 1,000 sites and the top losing 1,000 sites. And there were some interesting big movers and shakers, a few of which Amazon lost a ton of visibility. And in theory, visibility correlates with rankings and traffic. We're looking from the outside in, so we never know. But Amazon looks like they lost a huge dent just before Christmas. And the speculation is one of the challenges that Google has is if you're a huge site or a huge brand, you can kind of write about anything or have a page about anything and have a better chance of ranking than smaller competitors. And really, that's not how the system should work. Amazon shouldn't be able to just rank for everything just because they stock everything. They should still have to earn that position. So the theory is this is trying to rebalance that quality versus quantity argument. And Amazon has all of the quantity and not a huge amount of the quality. So
it does always feel typical when updates like these happen right before Christmas and Amazon loses a whole lot of traffic. It does feel weird, even when it's probably not related to anything on the commercial side of Google. it is going to raise questions that Google should probably be smart enough to prevent from being asked.
Yeah, and there were some other interesting ones as well. So Pinterest lost a mountain of traffic, as did Overstock, which is a retailer, Target.com, and then also TripAdvisor, Booking.com, CNN, New York Times, the BBC. These are all, if you look at it one way, all brands which are competing with Google. So yeah, I wonder, on one hand, you've got them saying this is a black box system rewarding quality. And on the other, you've got it conveniently saying, well, it turns out that Google's content and Google's platforms are a better quality than these platforms. So
yeah,
difficult.
Yeah, it is difficult. Absolutely. It's also difficult to really realize what's going on here, which is why we often just gloss over it and we don't know because nobody knows, and we can't pretend to know stuff that we don't want to pretend to know stuff that we don't actually know.
Yep.
Okay, next, Google gave us new and improved call stats.
Yeah, they did. This was a surprise. So Google's Search Console product has been gradually rolling out new toys and tools and features since it relaunched. And then this came out of nowhere, that they were going to provide us with reasonably detailed overviews of how often does Google crawl the site, what kind of status codes do they get, did they have any errors connecting to the server, and a kind of top-level overview of what did they find. It's not as deep or as specific as other tools that you can use, even some of the Google tools, but as an overview, it's really nice because a lot of smaller businesses will struggle to get this kind of information from things like server logs, especially if you're on cheaper hosting. It's useful to expose.
What I mostly say is when I see this is give me the API back that feeds this data so that we can use it within WordPress as we could in the
that would
past.
be nice.
We used to have this. We don't have it anymore. It would be really nice if Google restored that. But we'll push for that. Yes, again. Unfortunately, they don't always listen to us. So, something about page experience being mobile only.
Yeah, so I think we covered this last time. That in June, is it? Google are officially rolling out the impact of the core Web Vitals metrics.
Oh, I think we've lost Jono there for a bit.
Yeah, I think it's a bit too soon to do a Brexit now, Jono.
Yeah, I was keeping that joke for when it actually happened somewhere else, but yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think John is rejoining us. We should probably switch one screen for the other. There he is. Yeah, you disappeared on me.
There's work happening down the street. I think this is the perils of working at home.
You missed the gorgeous Brexit joke that Taco immediately made.
Has he been waiting for that in the wings any second?
Yeah. Oh, anyway, you were saying that we discussed this last time, indeed.
Yes. So Google have a set of metrics called Core Web Vitals, which is their kind of unified way of understanding how performant, how fast, how efficient is a website. That's been coming for a while and maturing. And as of the middle of 2021, it's going to be an official ranking factor, and your website's performance will directly impact its rankings. Okay, that was the story. The new piece of the story is it turns out that technically that will only affect their understanding of a mobile site's performance. It's a kind of mobile-only signal. But other news we've covered, big parts of Google are saying the only real way that we look at and evaluate and crawl websites is from a mobile perspective.
But I can sort of see how this works. So this will only apply to mobile search. So if I search on desktop, they will not take these variables into account as much as they will on mobile, which sort of makes sense because
you have a fast desktop connection.
Yeah, because usually on desktop I will have a faster connection than on mobile. What would make this really smart is if they'd actually factor in the speed of my connection. Because if I'm on a 5G connection on my mobile, I'm on almost as fast a connection as most people are in their homes. So it really, that might actually be what they're doing and not what they're saying, because that's harder to explain. But I was sort of like, yeah, this does make sense. On desktop, it doesn't really matter as much for my user experience.
I think what's particularly interesting about this is how they're talking about it. So on one hand, they're being quite careful. On one hand, they're saying this is an important ranking factor. And then they're also saying, actually, this is quite niche. But then you look at what's happening more broadly. We've got a point that they're working on showing an icon in the search results to indicate faster.
Yeah, that's the next slide. Actually, I'm very good that you're saying that. It's
nice.
like we prepared all this.
So this isn't a small deal. This is significant enough that they will educate, or at least try to educate users to be aware of fast and slow sites and reward them based on that. That's quite a big commitment for them to do. And then also, quietly in the background, we've just had the Chrome Developer Summit, which is an annual event where Google showcases all of the new technology coming in Google Chrome, all the new stuff they're doing in search, lots of very geeky, very techy stuff, dozens and dozens of talks, and almost every single one of them talked about performance and core web vitals metrics and how integral these are to what they're doing. What really struck me from having watched some of those is they go so far beyond just search and SEO and search results. Everything Google is doing this year and next year ties into speed, performance, network availability, offline access. This is really where they're looking.
Yeah, they basically want better experience, and step one is speed, and they're focusing heavily on that.
Yep.
Clear. Okay. And then the next bit, I think, Google confirmed that anchor text is a Google ranking factor. And I was like, are we in 1990 or in 2020? Because I sort of knew this already.
Yeah, this is not news other than them having confirmed it. But there was an interesting nugget came out, which is that they talked about the length of anchor text. And I think this is something that if I'm writing a blog post or managing a site, it's really worth thinking about in more detail. I mean, we obviously both on the Yoast blog and in the Yoast SEO plugins spend a lot of time focusing on how are you structuring your content, how are you internally linking, are you using descriptive anchor text. This bit is really important. The way that you link between your pages and out to other pages matters. The specific text that you highlight when you create the link is a signal that tells Google what that page is about. And if you just say, click here, doesn't have much context. If you say, delightful cake recipes, that's a bit more insightful. If you say, this is the best page on the internet for cat photos, that's even more explicit. So you can be quite tactical in how you link and the words you use to make those links. And that really does have an impact both on you and the people you're linking to. It's really worth thinking about.
Yeah, I think a lot of SEOs have known this in various degrees. The fact that they say longer might give more context is funny because it probably also means that they looked at it from a correlation study or something, and that if you have a lot of anchor text with the text here or click here, then that is always going to be shorter than the average good anchor text, I think. So yeah, it's also a bit of how you look at it. Now, well, that was fun. And then we had Google News Showcase, which I thought was a bit weird.
Yeah, so we touched on some of this, I think, last time. There is a really difficult relationship between Google and the publishing industry, where publishers like newspapers write content and rely on Google to get people through to it to read it, and they monetize that through adverts, etc. What's increasingly happening is Google is showing some of that content directly in the search results, acting as a middleman, and it's not clear how the commercial and economic model should work around that. And there are questions around privacy and attribution. It's a mess. Nobody really has a good answer. One possible answer is this new showcase approach, where Google takes your content as a publisher, but allows users and searchers to access it when it's behind a paywall in exchange for email addresses. So if I'm a publisher and I usually have a paywall, instead Google will let users in, but I'll still get their email address as that publisher. So it's a kind of symbiotic relationship between Google and the publisher. I'm not sure how real this is or how far it'll go. Google have tried similar stuff in the past. They had a program called First Click Free, which didn't really get adopted, and they adapted that into flexible sampling, which nobody in the world has ever adopted. I think this is a another half-baked attempt to fix what they're doing to publishing or with publishing. We'll see where it goes.
Yeah, it's funny. We'll touch on the Facebook related news later on. I have deep opinions about this, but I'll touch that when we talk about the Facebook news. Let's first go to Google Maps, because Google Maps every month wants to tell us something new as well, but they don't actually build new features. So because they're not building new features, they give us stuff like, you can now just post stuff that you created with your phone. I'm unimpressed.
Yeah, it's interesting technically, I think, but not in the real world. So the way that Google Maps was and is constructed is they drive cars around and take photos, which is great, but that means Google spend money to do it and they can only reach a place that cars can easily reach. The thing they've launched now is you can point your phone at what's in front of you and take a photo, and Google can take that and incorporate it into Google Street View in Maps, which if 1 million people do, and 1 million people take each 10 photos of, say, a rural area that Google might not be able to get to, we create maps between us. That's pretty cool, but I think it's not really a huge problem in many people's lives. It's not an exciting new feature that will touch many of us, but interesting.
No. I do a lot of Google Maps stuff where I upload photos of businesses, etc., and sometimes the stats on these are staggering. So for a local pizza place here, I uploaded the first photos, and I recently got an email saying that after 2 years of uploading them, they'd been viewed. 500,000 people had seen those photos, and I'm like, 500,000 people. That's a whole lot of impressions, etc. on a whole lot of nothing, basically. Then right before this, we started recording, actually, we got news about Google Maps that they're now showing web results in Google Maps as well, right? When they have no...
Yeah.
So when they have no Maps results, or at the bottom of the Maps results, they'll actually show Google search results from the normal Google search results, which is weird and will lead to all sorts of analytics snafus.
Yeah, they're notoriously bad at helping people understand where that traffic comes from and tracking it. So that's going to be difficult for businesses.
Yeah. Anyway, that's Google Maps. And then Google talked about the benefits of AMP yet again.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives us the opportunity to do a bit of a Jono party.
Yeah, so just in 30 seconds on that, Les, just to recap on what AMP is. AMP is a web standard, a type of HTML, a bunch of JavaScript that you use to build web pages. And it was originally created by Google to help people make faster mobile sites, because building and maintaining a faster mobile site is really hard. You need to be a master of HTML, CSS, JavaScript, server technologies, networking, security, performance, a bunch of other stuff. And in the real world, many people struggled. So they built AMP to fix that. It's evolved a lot as a platform. It's open source. It's run by the OpenJS Foundation. It involves people from Apple and New York Times and Amazon, and now me, which is a bit weird.
I don't think that's weird. I think it fits your job description of special projects quite well. So
this is pretty cool. So I got... Oh, sorry, go.
No, yeah. So congratulations. Actually, I think that's in order, right? You've been elected.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm now part of the AMP advisory committee. So I attend fortnightly meetings with a bunch of very, very smart, very scarily influential people to discuss what AMP should be and how we should be steering and shaping where it goes and what gets built and prioritized by the technical side. And I think this is really exciting for the open web, for web standards, for performance, just generally making the whole web a little bit better, one at a time, a piece at a time. So yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so that was the Google news for this week, this month also, but also this week. Because, well, it encompasses both. We have some WordPress news, but I don't know in which order we're going to go through this. Do we have slides for the Facebook one? I actually don't know. Let me scroll. No, we don't. Then we're going to do the Facebook news first, because that is funny. Because the FTC sued Facebook for illegal monopolization, and I do want to mention that, because as much as I don't want to talk about this, because I'm not a lawyer and I don't know about these things, the fact that the FTC basically says you should not have bought Instagram is quite a big thing. At the same time, when they say that to Facebook, I go like, but why don't you also say that to Google about YouTube? So, well, we'll see where that goes. It might lead to a whole lot of interesting discussion points over the next, couple of years, probably, because that's probably going to take quite a bit of time to play out. But it might actually lead to Facebook being broken up. And if you think that can't happen, well, research AT&T or Bell Labs in the US. They've done this before to quite big companies. So
it'll be interesting to see what that does to digital marketing, right? Because what SEO looks like, what paid social marketing looks like in a world where Facebook is broken up or where YouTube is a separate entity from Google changes quite significantly. The analytics changes, the marketing changes.
Everything changes. Yeah, absolutely. We'll see. I mean, I don't want to speculate on any of this because I honestly don't know, but we'll see. And then the other bit, which I thought was interesting, is that Facebook is going to pay UK media to license their news stories. And this very much ties into the Google News stuff that we talked about earlier, because basically publishers can now choose. They either pick their Facebook parent, or they pick their Google parent, or they live with both. But in many ways, the money is now flowing from advertisers to Google and Facebook to publishers, which is weird because it used to go directly to the publishers. And they're all struggling with this. And
nobody has solved the commercial model of how do publishers make money in a world where the platforms, i.e. Google and Facebook, are where the adverts live.
Yeah, and both the Google News thing and the Facebook solution have the problem that they reward the big news media and can't really reward the small ones. So this doesn't really work in the long run for getting new people into that market or for getting new companies into this play, which is weird because now Facebook gets to decide who they sign contracts with to do this stuff. And that is sort of what we wanted to prevent in the first place.
Yeah.
So it feels weird. Anyway, on to bigger and funnier news and funner news in many ways. WordPress 5.6. This was very cool. I love that it was called Simone. 5.6 was led by an all-female release squad of very awesome people. It really is a pretty cool release. We had our WordPress core team work on it quite a bit. They worked on 2021, the new default theme, which is quite good. It runs on Yoast.blog, my personal blog, and it's actually one of the, in terms of SEO, probably the best WordPress default theme we've ever had. We've done quite a bit of work on the PHP 8 side and other things as well with our team, but overall it was really just a pretty stable and good release. And I have to say that from our support team and elsewhere, seeing the upgrade went smoothly for most people. So it's pretty cool.
Very nice. It feels like a lot of the new stuff in 5.6 was kind of behind the scenes stuff, like the REST API and jQuery and PHP 8. But all of these things, when you look at them together, makes WordPress look more and more like really grown-up, sophisticated software and not a blogging platform from Yondia, right? This is serious stuff.
It is. Well, it's also almost 40% of the web now. So it's like it is a large platform that really needs to act grown up. Well, this is the new theme, 2021. Honestly, I don't think that these screenshots do it truly justice because
No, they don't.
it looks very arty here, but it's actually a pretty versatile theme that you can use for a whole lot of different things, which I think is great. It's very minimalistic, which I kind of like. But yeah, it works really well, and it has a beautiful dark mode that I like even more. And then on to our own news. We did a couple of releases, the biggest one of which was 15.4 2 weeks ago, where we introduced our Elementor integration. Of course, Elementor is one of the biggest page builders out there, if not the biggest by far. it was, well, basically what you're used to have in Yoast SEO in Gutenberg or in the classic editor, you can now have within Elementor as well. Seems to work. People are happy with it, so we're happy with it too.
That's pretty cool.
And today we had 15.5, which was a relatively minor release. We introduced Hungarian support, which is always cool, but we're also slowing down a bit. Because honestly, we're going towards Christmas and we've all deserved a break from this year. So we're slowing down. Our next release will be in January, not in December anymore. It's good to know, probably. But that was all fun. We started, I started with the help of some awesome colleagues, the Yoast SEO podcast. The first episode is already live and you can listen to it with Christy Olsen of Microsoft, a good friend of both Jono and myself. Jono and Christy are both in the Ginger Brigade of SEOs, I think.
Team Ginger.
Team Ginger. And the next one will be live soon. It says in my show notes that I should give some hints about the guest in the next episode. I can do that if I would remember who the next one was. Which Nienke, my personal, very great assistant on this project, is now frantically typing to me. I do know. I'm just kidding around. I can't find my mouse. But it's coming out next week with the lovely Aleida Solis, a good friend of Yoast. And then, we'll see about that. Is there anything else we need to mention? I talked about this already. Oh, yeah, we do have some other news. Were some really cool other tidbits, right? Probably the coolest thing we'll talk about today is this. Well, no, it's not true. The coolest thing was the thing before this on our list, but I'll cover that after this. Shopify put out some data insights that they broke $5.1 billion in sales during the Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend. I was reflecting on that. That's a god-awful amount of money.
Yeah, that's profound.
Shopify has had a great streak this year. They've grown immensely, and they grew by 76% over last year. I mean, realize what that is, 76%. And if you look at that article more in depth, it gets even scarier, because I think the average spend was just over $80 a purchase.
Yep.
It was really, really high. And, that is very profitable, very interesting to see. Now,
sorry, you go.
No, go ahead.
I just think it's amazing to see how easy it is now to buy and sell online. And one of the things that Shopify has done an incredible job of, and I say this full well knowing that they're a competitor to WordPress in some sense, but they have made it very, very easy for small business owners and artisans and creators to just sell stuff.
Yeah.
And that's really shows here, like their sales grew 76% year on year from Black Friday, and it's all small businesses. It's independent retailers and manufacturers.
Yeah, it's all non-Amazon. That's what makes me happy about it, because it basically grows smaller businesses and allows them to do that. I think it actually WooCommerce could learn quite a bit from what Shopify is doing in some ways, because it's just easier to set up for people.
Yeah.
In related news, my mouse is gone yet again. I have too many screens open. Everyone seems to be shopping on mobile, which honestly I can relate to. I'm sitting there on my couch doing this the whole time and ordering far too many things, which is a good thing because we're not spending money in pubs anyway, so we need to spend it on something. But yeah, it is growing. It does mean that you have to optimize your entire funnel for mobile, which is something that some sites actually need to work on, because far too many sites I the mobile site looks good, and then I get to the checkout, and suddenly my screen is like all blown up.
Yeah, and this is where platforms like Stripe have done phenomenally well, where it's just so sleek and so easy. Stripe's a bit more expensive than other payment processors, for example, but they just make it so easy. And as consumers increasingly expect these frictionless experiences, the janky ones are going to stand out more. There was some really interesting research. I think it was Adobe saying that mobile accounted for almost 40% of online spending this year, which was like up 50% year on year. But the really interesting bit that stood out was the huge growth from Japan, Italy, and Germany, which are countries which traditionally haven't, like Italy especially. These places have not spent large amounts of money online habitually in a way that other places have. So now that they've started doing it and people are comfortable with online e-commerce, with mobile e-commerce, that will continue even if the
they're not
world
going to
goes
go
back
back.
to normal.
Yeah.
So this is the new normal, and if you're not comfortable and set up and optimized for online mobile retail, your competitors might be. So it's about time.
Yeah, it is very cool. And then there's one thing that I did want to mention as well. The HTTP Archive Web Almanac is out. It's actually very cool. The HTTP Archive is a project by mostly Googlers, I think, that archives homepages from websites all over the web, and draws conclusions from the stats that it grabs from them. Some very interesting articles in there, and some of the stuff is really fun to see because you see the stuff that they write about schema, for instance, and you realize, hey, the most used schema on the web is the stuff that we put out in Yoast SEO. So that is probably highly correlated to how many of those sites are running Yoast SEO, but it's still very cool to see.
Yeah, really nice.
Okay, did I miss anything?
Don't think so. Should we invite Tucker back in to tell us off?
Let's do that. There he is.
I'll be nice.
That's just annoying. Why would you be nice?
Because it's almost Christmas.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
I'll start with an easy. Right. Yes, of course.
Yeah. Anna, you asked this. Well, there's the answer. 26th of January, we'll have the next webinar. I was actually trying to put an add this to your calendar link on Yoast.com yesterday. And then figured out that is incredibly hard because we don't have a web standard for that yet. So I'll need to figure out something better.
All right. On to another easy question by Boudewijn Lutgerink. Is there also a Divi integration for Yoast SEO?
Nope. Do we have one planned? Is your follow-up question?
Well, he probably would want to know, yes.
We don't have one in development right now.
All right. So Boudewijn also asked us another question about Google Maps. Is Maps a ranking factor when you upload images and relate to your own site?
I'll defer to Jono if he understands the question. I'm not 100% sure I know what he's asking here.
No, I'm not really sure I follow. Sorry.
So Boudewijn, if you can comment and clarify that question, then we'll keep an eye open for your follow-up.
And I saw a comment by Diane Bond here. This one,
yes,
which I thought was interesting. It's good to know that, Diane. I didn't know that, but I think it is good for governments to support people going online and actually doing something for their business right now because of COVID. It is a very hard time for many businesses, and as we go back into lockdown in the Netherlands, I only realize all the more how hard of a time it is. So the government actually helping people to get online with their business is probably a very good thing.
All right. So while we're waiting for Boudewijn to post his follow-up. I do have a question for the two of you, and I know that you don't have any, magic powers. However, what can we expect in 2021?
Well, you can expect approximately 11 or 12 more SEO news webinars.
Fair. I think I'll join. I like them.
And approximately 25, 26 podcasts. That's about as far as I'll go, I think.
I'll do some SEO predictions. I will predict that it will be harder and harder to approach SEO tactically. I think Google will get smarter when it comes to understanding quality, whatever that means. And that the best way you will need to spend your time is having the best pages on the internet for the problems your users have and demonstrating that you're the best, not just saying you're the best, but having demonstrably the people with the expertise, the authority, the experience, validated, proven, talked about, loved, known, and generally across the board showcasing that you are the best fit for these people. It's going to be so hard to achieve rankings and visibility by getting links and writing blog posts and having lower prices than competitors. You're going to have to demonstrate that you're the best. That's going to get harder.
Yeah. This is especially true in English, by the way. In other languages, this might not always be this hard or this. By the way, it's come back to us, and now I understand the question. If you put an image on Maps and have a link to your own site, is that backlink a good ranking factor? Well, that backlink, I don't know whether Google uses that in their ranking. I doubt they would, but it will drive traffic to you, and traffic will mean that people get to your site, maybe talk about your site, maybe even link to your site at some point as well. Yes, it's worthwhile. Whether it's directly a ranking factor, you never know with these things. But by all means, do get it.
Yeah, and as a user of Google Maps, I can encourage everyone to upload as many images and provide all the information, because I really hate going to a shop that's closed because no one updated their opening hours.
Yeah, and claim it. I still see so many unclaimed profiles in Google Maps. It really is astonishing sometimes.
All right. We have a next question that ends with Merry Christmas. That's a comment by Diane, who says she's working to build a Shopify website.
Cool. I think this one is funny to talk about, Diane. Do you think Google fiddle the results to suit their agenda? They'll always deny it. So even if they do, they won't ever tell you, and we don't know either. In general, I think, honestly, from having spoken to a lot of Google engineers over the years, they are pretty good people, and they truly try to do what's best. But it is sometimes hard when you're in the Google bubble to realize, well, what is the best.
I certainly don't think they manipulate the results in favor of any particular industry or site. I know there have been a few high-profile, politically sensitive and racially sensitive points where they have stepped in and made changes that have been well publicized. I think outside of that, no, I think there is a huge amount of conspiracy within the SEO industry, especially more competitive and edgy industries around Google pulling strings. I don't think that's the case. I think just it happens that in those industries, a lot of the sites aren't very good. A lot of the user experiences aren't very good. A lot of the tactics are pretty spammy and pretty low quality. And when everything is fighting against each other is not very good, of course it's turbulent. Of course no one brand stands out, because there aren't really many brands. There are just lots of websites full of articles. So yeah, the way you make it more stable and not have to worry about Google manipulating things is to become a better brand.
Yeah. Which also answers, we had another question about whether whether Google hates best off affiliate articles now. Well, Google doesn't hate affiliates. affiliates always seem to think that Google hates affiliates, but they don't. What Google hates is you not having a brand of your own and not having your own impact. So you have
not adding value to the conversation. Like Google is really good at ranking the best 10 things. They don't need another website to publish an article saying here are the best 10 things.
No, yeah. So you need to add something to that conversation to actually make sense, which is what the hardest thing is in affiliate marketing. It's really adding value is actually a hard thing to do. So Google doesn't hate you. Don't worry.
But if you do that well, you can win big. Like you can be a bigger and better brand as an affiliate than the brands you recommend, because you can have an opinion and you can compare things and you can point at faults and critique things in a way that the individual brands can't. You really can add value, but you have to do that. You have to be more than just a list of things.
Yeah, that is what it is. This even harder questions, Jono. This is what kind of SEO updates do we need to plan for? Well, honestly, what you have to do is what Jono just said. You have to keep on working on actually being the best result, which is hard. At the same time, it's also been my advice literally 10 years now. I recently redid a presentation I did at WordCamp Bulgaria 10 years after the fact with basically the same story, because as much as a lot of technical stuff has changed in SEO, the basics are very, very much the same, and it's getting more and more and more true because Google is getting better and better and better. So what you need to optimize for is their desired end result. If you optimize for their desired end result, you'll never lose.
And it's the critical thing to understand is their end result isn't rank your website for the keyword you want to rank for. It's solve the problems of their users. So rather than starting from how do I get my site to rank better from this keyword, go back a step further and start from what are the problems that my audience has, and solve those. Do the best job on the internet of solving those problems. And then you get an opportunity to try and sell them things and market to them and get their email addresses, etc., etc. But you have to solve that audience's problems before you can do anything else. And I think as an industry, we've skipped that. We've gone to how do I rank for keywords, learn to take that step back and really understand the problem space.
Cool.
I would say that there is no better ending of our webinar than this. So thank you, everyone, very much for joining. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and see you next year.
Absolutely. Happy holidays, everyone.
Yeah. Happy holidays.
I'm not going to sing for you. Sorry.
See you in 2021.